Hey, this one's a hood classic.
Lawsuit, sunsuit, and confusion, bullshit, intro, Mr. Stuff's a pack of money. Philosophy was my invention. See me, they're French. Medicine. You've never been This type of arrogance is sure to be expected from men who speak of them with no clue of what respect is. Westerners are sloppy, disciplined, and lack control of yourselves and of the press. To disrupt your concentration, you and ass whipping our descendants will honor for generations. The nation, the present more living, never home. To the wisdom for him. What? Sweetheart, Listen to talk with them about so you better get your white boy getting. Cause guess what? Asian faith, but no, this isn't ours. Please, kick the feet, let Confucius drop some bars. You can't deep with you, go damn. Front shirt with that little. Your ego just distracted. First speech of the beach, just keep yapping. You can die, so I got to gas. Any dog you see when you make your mustache. Try to play me just for something, but you just won't be. Honestly, I think you call myself a sweet Jack, come on, protect me, I'll be You're making things a little so let's buy these Chinese items with some shiny brightness. Bring from a frog. Korea, let's take some in your footballs in your mouth. Let's be reframed. Don't be with me. With me. And turn them on themselves. Their chaos is our opportunity. You must remember, a bowl is most useful when it is empty. Lousy, I don't mean no disrespect, but you need to fill your bowl with some shit and make some sense. Oh. I'll make your bowl, bitch. Get out the way. You always trying to put things in place. Why don't you tell your eyebrows they need a bit better life? Okay. You like it. What is this?
For many video game franchises, staying relevant or regaining popularity. I promise you that before they were in Smash Bros, nobody cared about Captain Falcon or the Ice Climbers or goddamn Pit. I mean, Brawl is literally the reason that Kid Icarus even got a revival in the first place. What I'm getting at is that all of the characters in Smash Bros, obscure or not, have some level of popularity, and popularity leads to fans, which leads to none other than fan games. I mean, even looking at surface level, people like Mario and Sonic very obviously have fan games in spades, but what about someone like the Duck Hunt Dog, or Dark Pit, or any Fire Emblem character? I'm sure that a pretty good amount of Smash Bros characters have their own fan games, and I don't think I've seen anyone truly look into it, but I'm gonna take that idea just one step further. Since I'm the silly horror guy, today I want to answer the question that absolutely nobody is asking. Just how many Smash Bros characters have their own horror game? Now, when I say horror games, I'm really only talking about fan-made ones, because if we were talking official horror games like licensed by Nintendo, this video would be 5 minutes long, and it would be Kirby and Luigi. Now, I won't lie, I did get this idea from Pat Mac and Shane Barillas, who both made amazing videos with similar subjects, but man, this just looked like so much fun, I had to do this myself. I went on an insane hunt trying to find a fan-made horror game for every single character in Smash Bros. And while like 85% of these games I found are creepypasta games, the list may surprise you in some places. To make things easy, there will be 3 different categories a character can be put into. They have a playable horror game or make a notable appearance in one, they had a horror game or made an appearance in it, but the game is no longer playable or available, or they just don't have a horror game or any presence in a horror game. I'll just be using a basic tier list thing to separate all this, just to make it easy for me. Before we really dive in though, I do have a couple rules for what counts, what doesn't, and then what kinda counts. Now the first and most obvious rule is that the fan game has to be scary, or at least have the intentions to be scary, even if it isn't. Obviously, some games are going to be of questionable quality and horror value, but if they were made with the intention to try to scare someone, I mean, that's a horror game. Next, for the character to count as having a horror game, they must be playable, an antagonist, or a prominent character in the game relative to the length of the game. So if, for example, there was like a 2-minute game and there was like one character in it that barely made an appearance, it might count, but if the game is like half an hour long and they just make like a brief cameo, we're not counting that. Next, the game has to be based on or around the original IP or franchise. This is so that I can't just cheat and find like one Super Smash Bros. Or Nintendo horror game and just call it a day. The horror game also has to be its own file or game. So that means no ROM hacks, no game platforms like Roblox or Scratch, no mods, which includes Friday Night Funkin', and no Mugen. I didn't find any Mugen horror games, but I wrote that down before anything, so you know what? I'm counting it still. Lastly, the horror game can count towards a character if the character is represented through an OC or like a representation of the character. So, for example, if there was like some Luigi monster named Lewis, but it was clear enough that that was supposed to be based on Luigi, then I still count it. Also, before we start, don't go out of your way and harass any of the people who created the games I talk about today. This is a video about Super Smash Bros. It's not that serious. Anyways, without further ado, let's talk about the intriguing, slightly less legend, how many characters in Smash Bros. Have their own game. Starting off our entire list, we've got the Italian man Mario, and if you have any idea about the state of creepypasta or horror games online, you have most likely seen a Mario horror game. He has tons of them. Some of my personal favorites include Crucius Mortem by White Void, Mario.exe by Cool Rash, and the reimagining of it by Inferno64, Super Mario Dollar by Zingadi, Another Princesses in Our Castle by CM9 Animations, and Mario the Music Box by Corpse Syndrome. I recently actually talked to Corpse Syndrome about her game and some of her other work on my new channel, Fearful Harmony, which you should go check out. It's basically a talk show where I talk with people in the horror and creepypasta community, so if that sounds up your alley, go do so. Anyways, if I had to pick one of my favorites to represent all Mario horror games, I'd probably have to go with the creepypasta game Mario 85, directed by Raz or Raz Dazzle Do. This is a reimagining of the first Super Mario Bros. Featuring Luigi running through the classic 1-1 level, only to be met by this terrifying giant Mario monster named MS. I love this guy's design, he's just a big old silly guy who wants to review it. The game is also extremely difficult for some reason, or at least it was for me, so best of luck trying to beat it. I don't plan to go crazy in depth with many of the games I talk about, but with Mario 85, you can see me talk about it more in depth on my channel. Anyways, with hundreds of examples under his belt, Mario's the first one on the list to have his own horror game. Next up, we got the king of the jungle himself, Donkey Kong. Now, I didn't have to dig too deep for DK. He does have some horror games, but unfortunately, they're both short and not very well made. The first one is based on his arcade appearance, titled Donkey Kong PC Port, a short creepypasta game made by Spork XD. It pretends to be the original game until you get to the top, and he turns red! It's pretty straightforward from there. He jump scares you, kills Pauline, kills you, jump scares you again, and the game's over. There's also Donkey Kong.exe from Cool Duck Games, which is a very short EXE game where you play as the Gremlins. If you don't know what a .exe game is, it's basically a creepypasta game inspired by Sonic.exe, where the antagonist likely has red eyes and also likely jump scares. Also in this game, the evil Donkey Kong just knows your name, which is lovely. Donkey Kong is confirmed to have a horror game. Now, I don't know a lot about Link or Zelda in general, but I did my
Resting my living
now, I know there's like a zillion different variants of Link, so for simplicity's sake, let's just stick with adult Link for this. There was like no games with this modern designs like Breath of the Wild or Twilight Princess, but we got some classic Links. Past.exe made by Randy Becker. It's based on Link to the Past. It's a standard EXE game. Kind of just walk around, get attacked by this fairy right here, and get hunted by a goddamn big drown the whole time. It's short and there's not much to do except walk around and interact with NPCs, but hey, it builds the criteria for a horror game. Also, do not forget Randy Becker's name. He will come in clutch many times on this list. Speaking of Ben Drowned, the creepypasta was quite popular back in the day, so a few games based on the story were made. I don't know if you want to count those or not, but I mean, they exist. There's also Zelda2.exe by Me, where you play as, well, Link. It's even worse than Past.exe, however, it has a part in the game where it took the name of my computer to try and scare me, but it unintentionally took the absolutely amazing name that I gave to my virtual machine, creating this hilarious image. Just like Donkey Kong, Link does have horror games, but unfortunately they're all just older EXE games. Saints is up next, and with Metroid having darker tones in its games, it's perfect horror game material. Metroid.exe was, get this, an EXE game made by none other than Randy Becker. Told you he's important to this video. It's a game about Samus being all like, hey, you're controlling me, I want you dead. There's some bloody creatures involved, some good old fourth wall breaking, and eventually Samus gets both of you killed, as evil Samus fades in and gives you a jump scare. I've noticed that with some of Randy Becker's older horror games, he likes to fade in a scary image slowly and then hit you with a jump scare. I found out your secret, Randy. You can't stop me now. Besides that game, I also found Super Metroid.exe made by Oldham77. I'll go more into depth on this game later in the video, but this game indeed does have you playing as Samus. You can also actually get power-ups and platform in the game. Who knew that EXE games could actually be games? Not me. Samus joins the others in having her own horror game. Now, Samus might have had a few horror games, but the same can't be said for Dark Samus. This is the first roadblock I hit on my journey to find these games. I wasn't able to find anything with my research. I mean, it's literally evil Samus. How could you not lazily slap them into a random EXE game? Wasted potential, if you ask me. Bad news for the being of pure phase-on energy, Dark Samus does not have a horror game. Moving on to the polar opposite of evil, Yoshi's up next, and oh boy, the second I got to him, I knew horror game to talk about. Yoshi.exe, created by Skashi, was an OG creepypasta game. Like, I remember watching this with my brother back in the day, and being scared out of my mind. For some reason. That jump scare is burned into my memory for life. Anyways, despite my nostalgia for it, this game is really nothing special. You play as Yoshi trying to find Baby Mario as the world around you becomes more and more scary and spooky. It all culminates in a Baby Mario jump scare, a fake-out game end, and then a Yoshi jump scare. That's the one that was burned into my mind right there. And let me just say, Martin Scorsese is eating at this ending as we speak. Fun fact about this game, this image of Yoshi was actually referenced in the Friday Night Funkin' mod Mario's Madness. That's cool and awesome, I think. With this, Yoshi is confirmed to have a horror game. My man Kirby is up next, and I've literally just made an entire video about Kirby horror games, so take a wild guess if he has one. To be fair, his games are terrifying enough to count. Have you ever seen The Boss or Crystal Shards? Anywho, Kirby's got a couple horror games under his belt, no surprise. To start, you've got the classic Randy Becker game titled Dreamland.exe. This game features you playing as Kirby, but he's evil! You want to see me go more into depth on it, you can go watch my recent Kirby video, but all you really gotta know is that he eats a Waddle Dees and he has sharp teeth. There's also Kirby's Adventure.exe by Polygonist Games, based on the NES game of the same name. Not the .exe part, that wasn't in it. This one's about some evil gray Kirby taking over the game and killing Kirby in various different ways. Kirby joins the ranks of having a horror game. Now, Fox was an interesting one to research because I know next to nothing about Star Fox, so research really wasn't the easiest for me. That being said, I was able to find a horror game, and you will not believe who made it. StarFox.exe, made by Randy Becker, is an actually pretty cool EXE game based on the original Star Fox game. It's pretty cool to see a well-made creepypasta game use 3D, especially some of the models used towards the end. Fox is the main antagonist in this game, and the only character that makes an appearance outside the title screen, so this isn't gonna count towards Falco or Wolf or anyone. Solid game. I do wish it had a little bit more gameplay to it, and also that the jump scares weren't super cliche and bloody, but I mean, hey, I still love EXE games. This proves that Fox McCloud is in a horror game. So far, the research for these characters has been relatively easy, but will this next character break that mold by being tougher than any of the rest? Will I have to scour the internet for hours trying to... It's fucking Pikachu, of course it's gonna be easy. Pikachu, being one of the most popular characters just of all time, has a hefty amount of horror. Of course, you got your classic EXE games, such as Uka Key, created by the Home Guy. This is a classic creepypasta game from back in the day, actually played by Markiplier for some reason. Alright. It features this red-eyed, scary Pikachu who just loves to scream in your face. There's also Pokemon Cursed Forever, also made by the Home Guy, and also featuring the exact same Pikachu. There's not much difference here. Leaving the realm of EXE games for a bit, there's also a multitude of Five Nights at Freddy's games featuring the yellow rodent. Now, we'll talk about a lot more of these later down the line, but yes, FNAF games count. These are fan games of FNAF. Nothing in my rules said I couldn't include these in my video. Sue me. I won't lie though, these FNAF games made the video so much easier. So many characters just made an appearance as an animatronic in these FNAF games, and automatically they count because of that. Pikachu alone has Five Nights at Pikachu's, Five Nights at Pikachu's 2, Five Nights at Team Rocket, you name it, there's like a million of these. However, probably my favorite Pikachu horror game was made by the YouTuber Vibing. They make tons of these retellings of old creepypastas and horror games, it's pretty sick. One of my favorite things they've made, however, is the game Pokemon, featuring this creepy, distorted Pikachu asking you to, skin and deliver the meat of animals to him. But how could you say no to that smile right there? You've got it, horrifyingly warped Pikachu monster. I won't go too deep into this game since I'd like to cover it one day, but just know that it's a fun, dreamlike experience that you might find kind of creepy. With all that said, this electric rat does indeed have a horror game. Up next, we've got Luigi, and I mean, we already talked about him being in Mario 85, so really you could just cross him off the list. That's no fun though, so I'll talk about a few games that feature him just a bit more prominently. TooLate.exe is an EXE game made by Mr. Pixel Productions, where you play as a grieving Mario who lost his brother. Thankfully though, Luigi comes back to life. He just, looks a little different.